Tonight on Ukraine Today, special operation Spider's Web. In just one day, Ukraine destroyed or damaged 34% of Russia's strategic cruise missile carriers, all in their main airfields. Russian offensive, tensions rising near Sumy and across the front line. Talks in Istanbul. Why didn't Russia share its so-called memorandum with Ukraine, the US or Turkey? Bucharest 9 plus Nordic summit in Vilnius. Is this diplomacy in action or a new anti-Putin coalition? All that and more in today's episode of Ukraine Today. Hi there, we are from Ukraine. My name is Volodymyr Robchun. Subscribe, hit that like button, and let's go. Ukraine has destroyed or damaged 34% of Russia's strategic cruise missile carriers in just one day. The Security Service of Ukraine carried out a brilliant special operation called Spider's Web. They used AI-powered FPV drones. Russian planes went up in flames at four major airfields: Belaya, Diaghilevo, Olenya and Ivanovo. Estimated cost of the lost aircrafts over $7 billion. But more importantly, these are irreversible losses. Those bombers are no longer being manufactured. Russia has no way to replace them.
We were preparing this operation for more than a year and a half. The planning, the organization, every single detail is perfectly done. We can say it confidently, this was a truly unique operation. And here's something interesting, something we can finally say out loud. Our operations center, right inside Russia, was located just next to the FSB headquarters in one of their regions. In total, we used 117 drones, and a matching number of drone operators were involved.
No surprise to anyone, this was a complex multi-stage operation. First, the FPV drones were somehow smuggled into Russia. Don't ask how, maybe one day we will find out. Then, mobile wooden houses were installed on trucks. Drones were hidden under their roofs. At the right moment, the roofs opened remotely. The drones took off. The people involved, they are already back in Ukraine, which proves it's possible to get into Russia, complete a mission and come home. Judging by reports in Russian disinformation media, one more truck carrying drones never made it to its destination. The little wooden house on the truck caught fire and exploded. All of this caused quite a stir among the witnesses.
The war has started here in Olenogorsk. It's probably hard to see over there. Behind that forest, smoke is billowing. Right now it's happening right here. And the most interesting thing is, a truck is parked at the entrance to the city in Olenogorsk. We're standing on the highway not far from Olenogorsk, near the Kuringa River. There's the bridge over there, and the truck is at a gas station in Olenogorsk. The driver arrived, he's running around frantic, and from his heater, from the truck, drones are flying out and heading toward Vysoky. The traffic police have just detained him there. He says, they told me to come to this location, that someone would meet me here. He arrived and the drones started flying out one after another. There was just now such heavy gunfire. Machine guns are firing, rockets too, but for now we still have communication.
So what's the bottom line? Total surprise for Russia, a loud slap in the Kremlin's face, and one more strong push to knock Putin's chair out from under him. All thanks for Ukraine's amazing defense forces.
An unprecedented operation by the Security Service of Ukraine, led by Vasyl Malyuk, deep in the Russian rear. 4 long-range aviation airfields have been attacked in the last 2 hours.
This is how the Belaya airfield looks right now. Strategic enemy aviation.
During the special operation called Web, Ukrainian special services carried out massive FPV drone strikes simultaneously on 4 Russian military airfields: Belaya, Diaghilevo, Olenya and Ivanovo. According to preliminary data, as a result of the operation, more than 40 military aircraft were hit, including strategic bombers Tu-95 and Tu-22M3. At the Ivanovo airfield, an A-50 long-range radar detection aircraft was hit by the drone strike. Russia has literally only a handful of such aircraft. The price of this rare bird is over $300 million.
There's another bang over there. Oh, look, a new explosion.
Again, a new one.
Didn't the drones check us out yet?
A fresh drone just arrived.
Look, again?
Here,
They're blowing everything up. Mom.
more drones.
Oh,
Not a fresh one.
Lesha, are we going to get killed?
According to preliminary data from the Ukrainian Security Service, SBU, in just a few hours, Russian aircraft worth about $7 billion were destroyed using cheap FPV drones.
From an economic efficiency standpoint, Ukraine's sabotage operation on June 1st, 2025 has few equals. A single FPV drone used by Ukraine can cost as little as $300 to $600. For comparison, a modernized Russian strategic bomber Tu-95MS is valued at $100 million or more. That's a cost gap of more than 100,000 times.
Siberia, Ryazan, Murmansk region, FPV drone strikes thousands of kilometers from the front line became possible thanks to a kind of Ukrainian Trojan horse, Russian trucks carrying dozens of Ukrainian drones on board.
There it is, the copter has taken off again. Where it's taking off from, it's impossible to tell. There it is. Whoa, out of nowhere. Whoa, unbelievable. Damn, look how far technology has come. We're working behind the wheel here, damn it. And he's also flying a drone, a cargo one. Whoa! And that's the cops trying to knock it down. Can you imagine?
Drones take off from a Kamaz truck right at the gas station. From the truck. The Panzer is shooting them down.
At the same time, after a successful operation, according to local residents, the trucks carrying the FPV drones burned to the ground after the mission.
We went fishing, and I said,
In Z Publics and Russian propaganda media, it's a day of mourning. Some, out of anger and shame, are once again threatening a nuclear strike. Others sadly note that the first day of summer has become a black day not only for Russian aviation but for the entire reputation of the Russian Federation. And apparently the losses to Russian strategic aviation are significant. Such a large-scale attack on components of the strategic nuclear potential, according to Russia's nuclear doctrine, could be grounds for the use of Russian nuclear weapons. What happened today is in fact a repeat of Pearl Harbor for the United States combined with September 11th. I'm sure that a wise politician in response will simply play dumb skillfully and drink some Ekovakin kefir.
It is already obvious that this brilliant operation by the Security Service of Ukraine will go down in world history.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Meanwhile, near temporarily occupied Melitopol, Ukrainian forces blew up a Russian military train headed toward Crimea. It was carrying fuel tanks and other cargo. That key Russian logistic road in Zaporizhia and Crimea is now disrupted. Over the past day, Russia lost at least 1,140 troops, killed and wounded. Since the start of the full-scale war, that's already 989,700. And in just the past 24 hours, Ukrainian forces also destroyed 2 Russian tanks, 7 armored vehicles, 48 artillery systems and dozens more pieces of Russian equipment. Still, the enemy keeps pushing. Russia is attacking near Sumy. Here's what's happening on that part of the front line.
Russia continues its offensive in the Sumy region. The occupiers are trying to break through certain sections of the front. According to statements by the spokesperson of the State Border Guard Service, Andriy Demchenko, the situation in the region is tense, especially along the borders of the Kotin and Yunakivka districts. However, there is no evidence of a large-scale offensive by the Russian Federation. The enemy is advancing in small assault groups, losing hundreds of soldiers every day, including due to the Ukrainian armed forces' maintained foothold in the Kursk region.
The enemy is trying by any means to push us out of Russian territory, but we have good operational positions, and most importantly, we are using them to destroy large enemy forces. And it's very important to note that these are professional forces, As a rule, in other sectors, most of the troops are conscripts. In other words, what we call cannon fodder. But here we're facing airborne troops, Marines, air assault units, regiments, parachute regiments. In other words, those who have been trained for a long time to carry out such operations.
Also, according to the military, the enemy, likely assessing its prospects, is hardly using armored vehicles at all in the Sumy direction. At most, the command is deploying light motor vehicles. This allows for somewhat faster movement across open terrain, but it does not have a decisive impact.
The Russians continue their strategic offensive operation, and when analysts talk about whether the enemy's advance has increased or decreased, it has increased. What is this due to, in fact? In recent weeks, the Russians have achieved one such non-strategic but operational success. This is the breakthrough of our defenses by forces up to a division between Pokrovsk and Kostiantynivka, reaching the Pokrovsk-Kostiantynivka highway.
However, having broken into our defenses, the Russian Federation is constantly subjected to flanking attacks, which allows us to effectively destroy the enemy and regularly replenish our exchange fund. For example, in the past 24 hours, the armed forces of Ukraine have repelled more than 50 assaults here.
I wouldn't call this a major offensive, but it is certainly enough to draw serious attention from the Ukrainian defense. The Russians have assembled what they call the northern group of forces in this area. Essentially, they have moved in from the Kursk region.
To minimize civilian casualties, Ukraine was forced to announce an evacuation from areas near the border. The authorities explained to locals, this does not mean your home will be occupied, it just means it is becoming too dangerous there. At the moment, there are 213 such settlements.
Can I go now?
Sit her down over there.
Can I put her here?
Sit her down, sit her down, sit her down.
Ukraine is disrupting the Russian offensive not only with actions at the front but also behind enemy lines. Yesterday's sabotage of a railway bridge in the Kursk region and the derailment of a train in Donbass are proof of that.
To keep the enemy on edge, under the occupied city of Melitopol, Ukrainian special services, specifically the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, derailed a freight train carrying shells and ammunition. Strikes continue to be carried out. Over the past day, there were strikes on Elgov and on the area around Kursk in the Russian Federation in order to prevent the enemy from regrouping, supporting their own logistics, delivering ammunition and personnel to continue offensive actions in the Sumy region.
At the same time, the bravado of Russian military correspondents about troops advancing on Sumy looks completely absurd, according to experts. Despite minor successes in the Sumy region, the likely outcome of all these actions by the occupiers will be temporary control over a narrow strip of forest belts along the border.
Again, this is overall quite a slow, not very, how should I put it, consistent and not very well coordinated offensive, the point of which, as I understand it, is to carry out Putin's order and create in the Sumy region what he called a buffer zone.
The Ukrainian side is also predicting that the Russians will not be able to reach Sumy. Currently, there is an enemy grouping of about 50,000 people in this direction. And for such grand plans, these forces are clearly insufficient.
According to Deep State, in May, Russia increased its offensive operations by 19% compared to April. That's nearly 184 attacks per day, on average. Ukraine is fighting for freedom. Support independent Ukrainian journalism so we can keep telling the truth about this war. Click the link in the description and become our sponsor. Together to victory. And if you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Today in Istanbul, Ukrainian and Russian delegations are meeting. Most likely by the time you're watching this, the talks have ended, so we'll soon know the outcome. As of recording, we know that Ukraine is represented by Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, along with officials from human rights, military law, intelligence, law enforcement and the President's office. Ukraine's position, still the same. A complete ceasefire for at least 30 days. A full prisoners of war exchange, all for all. Return of abducted Ukrainian children and a direct meeting between Zelensky and Putin. Russia was expected to present its so-called memorandum, but as of the start of the talks, neither Ukraine, the US nor Turkey has received any document.
As of now, we still don't have a clear idea what the Russians plan to bring to Istanbul. We don't know. Turkey doesn't know. The United States doesn't either. And our other partners, same story. So far, it doesn't look very serious. We talked about this with President Erdogan. Of course, the whole world wants diplomacy to start working, for real. Everyone wants a real ceasefire. Everyone wants Russia to stop playing games with diplomacy and just end this war.
Meanwhile, the president of Ukraine has arrived in Vilnius. There, he will join the Bucharest 9+ Nordic summit and hold bilateral meetings with other leaders.
I think it will be very necessary to meet with other partners to discuss very important issues for Ukraine, for Europe, security guarantees for Ukraine. And we will discuss also coalition willings. And I hope that we are very close to important decisions and also urgent things which are very important, necessary for Ukrainian people. It's air defense, Patriots and other systems. Are very important.
That's all for today. Thank you for being with us. We read your comments and feel your support. Strength to our defenders. Glory to Ukraine. Subscribe, like, and see you tomorrow.